Hey guys, this is Bill from Linden, Tennessee again. Going to give a little update slash, I don't know, instructional video maybe for you. So we got going on here over the last couple days. What I've done is after getting all the suspension installed, and I kind of did a rough alignment. I'll probably talk about that in another video, or maybe not. I don't know. Did a rough alignment, got the suspension in. Then what I did was I took the springs out of the suspension so that I can have the Jeep riding at its lowest point. Did that for a couple reasons. One, it makes getting into and around it a whole lot easier because everything's a little bit lower. The other reason is when I go to start figuring out where batteries are going to go and where things are going to go, where I'm going to mount stuff, I need to know at what point is the suspension going to come up to. What's the lowest point that I can mount something? How deep can I make a battery box or whatever? Anyway, there'll be more on that once I get into that. But at the moment, what I've done is loosened up all the motor mount bolts, took the motor mount bolts out, and just kind of went around the Jeep with a axle jack, you can see, and picked the body up off of the frame and just put some 2x4 spacers underneath of it and kind of worked around until I got it at a high enough, until I got it jacked up high enough, the body off of the frame, that I could get around it and work underneath of it. Because I've got to make some motor mounts, and they have to be welded to the top of the frame, and then they're also going to be welded to the suspension mountings. Yeah, so what I wanted to do, I went over to Harbor Freight, and bought one of these chain hoists, and I thought I could maybe connect that to my trusses on the roof here in the garage. But they're just 2x4 trusses, and they got splices in them, and I don't know, it'd probably be okay. But then again, it could probably not be okay, and it's not really, I didn't want to risk it. Then I thought about maybe buying one of those gantry A-frame deals from Harbor Freight or Northern Tool or something like that, and you can get them for like $400 or $500, and that would have worked too. But it's Thanksgiving weekend, and it'd be a long time until they got here, and I don't want to wait that long. I want to do this now. So I took things into my own hands, and I went around and lifted the body off the frame. I will tell you, if you should decide to do this too, there's two motor mounts, or I'm sorry, two frame mounts back there. And if you don't loosen those, it's really hard to move this body around. But I did. So let's go over here and see what we've done so far. Okay, this should be a better view of what you saw before when I was crawling around underneath there on a creeper. So there's the motor mounts, the temporary ones that I made, and that's just to get this sucker in position where I wanted it, and then to rigidly hold it so that I could go to this next step, and that's making the actual motor mounts. So here we got the frame, of course. Here we've got the brackets for the long arm suspension kit, and these brackets are only held on by 3 half-inch bolts on each side, and they're mounted from the bottom up. And I don't want to just use that to mount this motor on, so I'm going to come across the top here, up, around, over, and then weld along the sides of each of the motor mounts onto the top of the frame here. But I got to make some mounts first, and that's kind of a weird shape, sort of. You couldn't really measure it. You couldn't do anything. So the only way I could think of to do it was to get one of these little doohickeys right here. I don't know what you call this, but I got it at the local hardware store. Just a whole bunch of little nails, basically, and you take this guy down here. I gotta switch hands. You take this guy down here, and then you kind of figure out where you want it, and then you just sort of push it down over the frame and over the mountings and all that stuff, and then you come up with that shape, come up with a profile. Then you take this over to, I use just a piece of manila, like file material, file stock. It's really cheap. You take that and then you draw that out with a marker. Then you take a pair of scissors or an X-Acto knife or whatever you have handy, and you cut this little guy out. Then you take this back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until you've figured out what pieces you need to add, what are pieces are important to have for the final mount. And then you take that guy and you transfer it to a thin piece of metal. I just happen to have some 16 gauge metal laying around, as one does. You transfer that to there, and then you cut out a shape. And then you take that shape back and forth and back and forth until you get it to fit. And then you take it to a big old piece of metal like that, line up one of the edges, and then what I did next was I center punched where that hole is, drilled out the hole to the right size, and then stuck a bolt through that hole, through this piece, and then drew around there, and then went over to my little trusty bandsaw over there. That's kind of a must-have tool right there. It's just a normal handheld bandsaw, but it's in one of these mounts that Swag makes. Yeah, Swag. I don't know what the Swag Offroad. No, Swag something. Anyway, you look them up on the internets. But they make a whole bunch of cool products. Yeah, and then I kind of took a compass and drew out the rest of this circle for the rest of the motor mount, and then took that and made that guy. That guy right there. Now, there's no reason in hell, in the world, for you to use 3/8 cold rolled steel. I used it because there was just a piece of this stuff laying around at work, and yeah, so I got it for a pretty good deal. So that's what I used. It took a long time to cut out with that dang bench grinder, and then you got to get an angle grinder and all kinds of other stuff. And then you take it over here and you put it into the hole. Let me show you. Yeah, you put it into the hole right there. Like, I can't see what I'm doing and talk to you too. Yeah, there you go. And you put it on the hole right there, and you hold it in place, and by golly, it fits like it's got eyes. There's kind of a gap underneath the frame right there, but that's okay. There's kind of a gap. In fact, there's kind of a gap everywhere around it, which is fine because when you weld it, you want to make sure that you get good penetration. In fact, one thing I'm probably going to do, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to bevel at least one side, maybe both sides of this. I'm going to bevel both sides of this. That way I can get some good weld in there, good penetration. And I'll come in here with an angle grinder and grind away all this metal, or grind away all this paint and powder coat and all that stuff, so I can get a good metal-to-metal weld on there. And I'll tack it up at first with some decent tacks. And once I've got all 4 mounts made, I've only made this one so far, and once I've got all 4 mounts made and on there and tacked in place, then I'll take the actual motor and bring it over. In fact, what I may do is I may just tack the first 2. I'll do this. I've done this one. I'll go do the other side. Do one over there, and then I'll make the other 2 mounts. But before I actually tack them on, I'll probably put the actual drive unit up there with the bolts going through it, and tack them in place using the drive unit itself as a guide of where they really need to go. Because I'm sure this mock-up that I made it's really good. I mean, it's really close. I'm sure it's very close. But it's not the actual drive unit, so it's better to use the actual drive unit. And finally, let's talk about some tools. There's some things that you're going to have. One of these right here, in fact, you should probably get 2 of them. This is just a cheapo one from Harbor Freight. I think it was $40, but man, it's almost as good as the DeWalt's. I burned up one of them, but they last pretty good. And need yourself some kind of a square. You're gonna have a knife, a pair of scissors, some tape, some drills. This is just an engineering pencil, an engineer's pencil. It's just a grade oil, chalk oil. Anyway, center punch, hammer, step bit, and a drill. Bonus, get you one of those setups. Actually, if you're going to do it with 3/8 steel, you have to have one of those. You can't cut that stuff any other way. Plasma cutter maybe, but some transfer punches wouldn't be a bad thing. These are just cheapo ones off of Amazon. Careful with them though, because they're not hardened, and if you try and center punch a good solid piece of steel, it can end up flattening the points, and that's not good. Let's see, what else can we talk about? I don't know, nothing else. I don't really have anything else to discuss on this video. Yeah, so that's going to take care of my getting all these brackets done. Is going to work me pretty much to midnight tonight, I'm sure. And then I'll probably work on it again all day tomorrow. It's the Thanksgiving weekend, so I've got 4 days off, today being one of them. So I'll probably get all these done this weekend, and yeah, that'll be good. So until next time, we'll see you later.